So another example of how our culture is so different to many other businesses. It's the way we all talk to each other as well. So what you may not know is that the way you speak to one person should be different to when you speak to another, because everyone's different. Everyone has different emotional intelligence, and you can easily upset and demotivate one member of your team if you speak to them all the same. So the key thing here is you need to be constructive, but you need to be mindful in the way that you say things. So the tone of your voice, it's a big factor in how they perceive in what you're saying as a business owner.
Welcome everybody, you are listening to the Black Country Business Podcast. So today we're going to be interviewing Connor Healy from Healy Fencing and Landscaping. So he works around the West Midlands and Worcestershire. And there's something that I actually saw about Connor. I saw him on LinkedIn and I thought, this guy is everywhere. He's omnipresent. He's going out there and he's doing such tremendous jobs and fantastic work. And the comments he gets on his LinkedIn is an absolute superstar. So I thought, what is it that Connor's doing? What makes him so special that he's got all these raving fans? He's got all these great reviews. Let's find out what that secret sauce is with Connor so we can share it on the Black Country Business Podcast so everybody can take a piece of that and start to learn from Connor about what he does right. So, Connor, welcome to the Black Country Business Podcast. How are you doing?
Thanks, Lewis. I'm not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. Okay, the question that we always start with, Connor, is what do you do and who are the clients you serve?
Okay. Well, to put it in plain sight, when you're on holiday, you spend most of your times outdoors, right?
I'd like to. Yeah, it'd be better than the four walls of the house. Absolutely.
Certainly. So you think to yourself, wow, I wish I could spend more time here. Where was that place for you, Lewis?
Yeah, I remember I used to live in Australia. And there were a few places that I went around. I thought, you know what, I could spend more and more time here. It was the beaches in Australia.
Yeah. So would you say that's what made you feel happy about that place? Was there any specific feature of that place in Australia where you felt I could spend all my time here?
Absolutely, yeah. The outdoors, the lightness as well. I'm into like my natural woods and the natural timbers and things, and just having all those nice trees around. It was a good mixture between sea, sand, and nature. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, I'll tell you what we do. We actually bring that happy place to your back door. So we create beautiful gardens of your dreams, and gardens that can create an infinite amount of happiness for you and your family. So basically, to break it down, what we do inside that, creating your beautiful garden, we install fencing to provide the privacy to allow your individuality, as well as blocking out that nosy neighbour, which is very important because who likes a neighbour peeping over their fence?
Especially if you saw me in Australia in my speedos, by the way. Yeah, we don't want the neighbours peeping over the fence. I don't think they would anyway, to be honest, if they saw that every day. So what you're talking about here, Ed, is that part of your way of doing things, just from that one short conversation there, is that you're actually finding out what people want. Is that right? It's about that vision?
Yes, yeah, that's it. So what we do when we visit these sites and we survey people's gardens, we find out exactly what they want, and exactly how they want it.
Yeah, I liked what you said about the happy place as well.
Yeah.
Is that what you talk about with your clients then? I mean, this is about getting to that secret sauce of why you've got all these raving fans out there. So is this what you do then?
Yeah. So we talk about that happy place, like Jordan North does on Celebrity Get Me Out of Here. You mentioned that happy place at Turf Moor. It's the questions we ask when we're on that site. So we say, we can see you sitting there with a coffee with a nice cast iron table under a pergola. So we paint, our job is to paint the picture for our client.
That's interesting. So where does this come from then? Tell me a bit of background about how you've come to this realization. I mean, why would people really want this happy place in their back garden? Why does that add value?
Well, especially with COVID, people haven't had many places to go. So the value people see in the gardens now, it's just increased tenfold. Like you mentioned, instead of being confined in the four walls of your house or of the office, the outdoor space is very important. You get the vitamin D from the sun. You get the nice breeze on your, on your skin. It's an important way of life because you feel when you're outside the most.
Yeah,
and it's a sense of freedom and happiness.
I think this is so key for today as well, especially with the mental health awareness things that are coming up. It's great for not just people to get outdoors, but why can't you have that piece of outdoors? Your favorite. I like what you mentioned about having the favorite place that you've ever been in the world. Why can't that be a part of your home?
Yeah, it's like it's that space away. It's you forget that you're in your working environment. So it's that break that everyone really needs.
Yeah, really essential for working from home people as well. I mean, a lot of the business owners that I talk to, they're talking about how can we create a system and a process in place where we can take care of our people from distance, from people that are working from home. How do they have their breaks? A lot of the managers and executives I speak to, they're hardworking people, and they say one of the biggest challenges I get since being working from home is I can't switch off. They used to do their 9 till 5 before, but now that 5 o'clock has now turned till sometimes I don't stop until 8 o'clock. And next thing I know, the kids have gone to bed. I'm not having that break away from doing anything. So what you're saying here is that a good solution to that is to have a great looking garden that makes you feel like the place where you can be at your best.
Definitely. It's one of those where, you get, even myself here, I get back from a long, hard day. And especially when it comes to, say, the end of the week, and I love to do nothing. So I'll go home and I'll sit there and I'll open maybe a cold bottle of beer or a cider or whatever your tipple is. And I just like to sit there, do nothing, not have to go out, and not use up my energy. I can do it from the comforts of my own home, where I'm the most happiest.
Really cool. I mean, the word that comes up into my mind there, Connor, is being present.
Yeah.
The amount of managing directors I chat with, and they're like, yeah, we've got these goals. It's great to have goals and thinking about the future and stuff, but if you're never actually present, what's the point?
Exactly. And that's the importance we teach, in our company, is that family always comes first. So if you're feeling exhausted, you need to listen to yourself, and you need to actually go on that break, and go to that happy place. That place where you feel good, and you forget about the world around you, and you're able to shut off that way.
That's really interesting what you said about what we teach in our company. It's like your culture. We had a quick chat about this, wasn't it? And I did actually mention what makes you unique. And you said it's your team, it's your employees. And after speaking with you, I assume our listeners straight away for the last couple of minutes have realised that you've got this special approach to the way that you attract and serve your clients as well. Now, it's not just about you. Now you've got 4 teams out there doing this.
Yeah.
So how are they doing it as well? And for me, I think that's a bit of a magic recipe that we could share with the listeners today of what makes them keep this culture up of keep serving people and helping people and doing this. So should we have a chat about that?
Okay. Well, the value of culture is so important. So I always look to employ people who are more skilled than I am, who are better at certain tasks than I am. My skill set is building my business, prospecting clients and new deals, and talking to people. So basically, the way our culture is built is the fact that my guys are doing what they love the most. So I don't just have one team doing fencing in one place, fencing one day, decking another. You know, one team love doing patios, the other team love doing fencing.
Wow. So you're talking about working to their strengths then?
Exactly, yeah. So working to their strengths, and it keeps them happy, because when they don't work to their strengths, they're stressing about, you know, how do I do this? And for you know, it can be a hard task to overcome, because landscaping is never easy. And there's much more thinking and much more preparation in it, you know, than people see. So in that respect, that's how my team, that's how our culture is so different to many others, because we all have a role to play in the business and we all work to them strengths. So let's just take, you know, I'd say I'm going to look out at jobs, and this is where I take after my father. So people will either like you or they won't. So I don't waste time over those who don't, and I don't waste time on those who don't get back to me, and nor should anyone else. So the culture is doing what you love. So another example of how our culture is so different to many other businesses. It's the way we all talk to each other as well. So what you may not know is that the way you speak to one person should be different to when you speak to another, because everyone's different. Everyone has different emotional intelligence, and you can easily upset and demotivate one member of your team if you speak to them all the same. So the key thing here is you need to be constructive, but you need to be mindful in the way that you say things. So the tone of your voice, it's a big factor in how they perceive in what you're saying as a business owner.
Wow, that's incredible. There's so many takeaways from that, so many learnings from that. So just to wrap up I've made some notes on this there, Connor. Number one, working to strengths.
Yeah.
Now, to listeners that are listening now, to Black Country business owners and managers and key executives within companies, leaders, if you've got a team that you manage and they're not working to the strengths, first of all, what is that doing to their happiness? Is it making them going to get out of bed every morning to come and do something that's not their strength? Secondly, how much money is that business leaving on the table by not having someone work to their strengths? Can you just imagine the amount of disengagement of, I don't really feel like it. There's going to be looking for things that of why things can't happen, for example. Now, if it's your strength, if it's your superpower, you're going to go out there and you're not just going to give it 100%, you're going to give it 150%, aren't you?
Definitely.
Is that what you're seeing? Is that what you mean by working to strengths? That's my sort of coaching angle on it. But you here are a real life example of that in place. No,
definitely. I won't do things I don't enjoy. So why should the team?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the second part then, I wrote there, is either like you or they don't.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that then.
Okay. So
I want to dig into this, Connor. You've opened up a can of worms here. I think it's really good for the listeners to hear.
So when I say people will like you, they will either like you or they won't. There's no other better way of putting it. You can't please everyone, is what I'm trying to say. You know, people don't always see eye to eye with you or your methods. So don't take it personally, basically.
I think what you're talking about there, that's a lifelong lesson that anybody We get a lot of young entrepreneurs listen to this, by the way, Connor, and a lot of them never really break through that original that starting position because of bullshit beliefs of people won't like me.
Yeah,
and I think that's real key.
It is basically a fear that you don't think about, but it's a fear, and you need to get over it, because if you don't get over it, then you're not going to move forward with your business at the end of the day.
Yeah, really interesting. And the amount of things that could stop people with the greatest idea and the greatest potential. What a shame it is, just because out of 10 customers, they have somebody that didn't want to buy their product and wasn't very nice to them. That means that the whole future of their business and everybody they could ever employ and give jobs to gets halted because of that one belief that, you know, that can easily be simplified with people either like you or they don't. It's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And just to reiterate that, you've got to think of it as a numbers game. So this is the salesperson inside me. You know, a business is a numbers game. So you've got to go through the numbers to get those clients. And it's really simple. Just don't overcomplicate it. The more people you talk to, and the more people you go and quote for, depending on what you do, you know, the more likely you are to get the job or get the sale. Yeah,
there's a great book on this, by the way. It's called Go for No. So every no that you get, there's a yes for it as well. So how many no's can you get?
Exactly. But I actually learned that lesson by doing a sales only commission role, a commission only sales role.
So it was real life experience.
It was real life experience. So, you know, before that, I was a deputy manager at Aldi, the supermarket. So I've gone through different jobs in my career.
Yeah.
On purpose to learn different skills. That's to make me an overall better person and a better business owner, basically.
And I guess this goes into the third point I was going to talk about as well, is communication.
Yes.
So you mentioned emotional intelligence, and the way that you say things is different from the way that you communicate with different people. And is this, you mentioned the team, but in customers too?
Yes. So it's the same as customers. So let's just say, you know, I learned this lesson from my old man. You know, he was very one tone the way he spoke to people. But I'd never knock him for that, because this is where it comes from. People either love you or they don't. But it's a lesson learned from him indirectly that shows you the actual importance of talking to people. So he could say something to me and it might upset me, but say it to someone else and it won't, because they will just find it funny. So yeah, the way you speak to people does matter. And that's something that I've learned from him, without him even having to teach me or without anyone teaching me. It's just something I've come across, and it's, you speak to people the way you like to be spoken to, you treat people the way you like to be treated.
Brilliant.
And you do it in such a way where you communicate, you know, clearly.
So you learned this life lesson, and you're talking about here of the reason why you keep getting these, we call them raving fans, by the way, in action coach terms, people that want to go out there and scream about you and give you great reviews and tell all the friends about them, raving fans. So you're getting a lot of these people, and that's coming from the jobs that your guys are doing. So it's not always just about you, it's about your team members doing this as well. Is that right? So as a business owner listening right now, how do I, as a business owner, get my team to have the same values and get that out to a bigger scale amongst teams? What do you need to do to educate your team about this?
Okay, well, it's not a quick process, because everyone is stuck in their ways. You know, everyone has their way of doing things, but you have to communicate and just talk to them about it. You don't have to talk to them about it every day. You bring up the topic of, you know, it's like storytelling, isn't it, really?
Brilliant. So tell me more about that storytelling. I love this idea of storytelling.
Okay,
What's going on in your head when you say storytelling? What's the lesson here?
when I relate to them about, when we talk about, say, a story, a scenario that they've been through in their working career, they've been employed by other people, and they often say, if I bring up this topic of speaking to people clearly, being polite, and always asking the client the questions, so I making sure that they're happy. I always relate back to this when, through my working career and their working career, they will then highlight this to me and say, Connor, actually, the way you do this it's really, really good. The way you keep, just the way that the communication is made between the customer, they actually see how important that is, and the way they talk to each other. So in past experience, say employee number one, that they've worked for someone else, and they relate that story back to me when I've spoke about communication and the way you speak to people, and they think to themselves, well, actually, he's got a point. The way you speak to people does matter, and it makes a big difference on how they react, and it's like a preemptive thing as well. So it prevents any, say, callbacks, or prevents any miscommunication. Everything is constantly flowing.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying here, because if you're telling a story, it's kind of like they're putting rather than, there's two options here, isn't there? We can either tell someone directly, or they can come up with the answers themselves. So go on.
And that is what we try to teach here.
Yeah.
So to think for themselves, therefore, in the long run, that frees me up from having to keep being on the phone and talking to the customer or the client. So it has a bigger impact than you might think.
Fantastic. So they come up with themselves, and they put themselves in that seat, and when that scenario appears in their life, they're ready to deal with it. It's kind of like what we call the difference between consulting and coaching, by the way, in our world. Is what's the difference between a consultant and a coach? Well, it's the difference between, do you give a man a fish, or do you teach a man to fish? Yeah. We don't coach businesses, we coach business owners. So what's the difference? Well, we can go in there and fix a business. That's not the problem. Strategy and the do is easy. But what happens to that business owner when that business is complete? Well, because we've coached the business owner, they can go and make 2, 3, 4, 5 businesses. Well, the world's the oyster there, because they've got the skills and the knowledge to do it.
Yeah.
It's the same what you're saying there. You're kind of coaching your guys to go out there and be mini versions of you.
That's correct, yeah. So I'm teaching them to take pride in what they do, but beyond the work that they do. So it's not an extra thing on their day. It's just an extra skill set to their hand. So something they'll always then do, and it's drummed into them. It's basically like they're working for themselves. So I don't micromanage. I've been micromanaged before, and that's not my way. And I don't believe in shouting at people, and I don't believe in talking down to people. So it's the way, going back to the way you speak to people, that's how it is so different and so important, because the way you speak to people, it has a bigger impact, and it gives them more responsibility to say, I want to take this hassle away from, say Connor, and I want to do good for his company. And when I say do good for his company, they want to treat it as their own, and that's how I want them to treat the business. I want them to treat it as their own, and not feel the pressure of me breathing down their neck, because that's not my method of working.
Well, that's the micromanaging, isn't it? And where do we learn micromanaging from? Well, we go to school, don't we? From the age of, 4 or 5, we start to meet a teacher. And then who decides that that's the rule for the next 12 years, that that's the way it has to be? Looking over your shoulder, making sure you're doing your work right. Then you go in there and you do an exam and come out the other end with a grade. Yeah. As a business owner, that does not make sense if you're empowering people and you don't want to micromanage them. Otherwise, it's going to be over our employees' shoulders. And how does that make them feel when they're not empowered to actually get it done?
Exactly.
Really cool. So the communication then is a big part of this, and this come back to your storytelling as well. So the word going around in my head, by the way, is culture and values. Yeah. We talk about having the rules of the game. What are the rules of the game equal to? If it's in the game of rugby, for example, we've all got to know what rules to play to achieve the mission, which is we've got to score and win. And the main vision is that we want to be number one in the world. Yeah. So it's very back to I'm really excited about this, to get this out there, because you're a real life living example of things that we're coaching to. So back to the stories then. The listeners here right now, we've got some business owners that could be, we've got clients that are 50 million pound plus business owners that listen to this and still take learnings from it. And then they share it with their employees and things. We've also got listeners from the other end of the spectrum that are just starting out too. So you mentioned storytelling. What's the story of how you got started in the first place? Because I think there'll be some good overall wrapping up to find out what makes Connor. How did Connor get to where he is today is what I want to look at. And can we lock in some of them learnings too? So what's your story? What got you started?
Okay, so say we go back to day one, basically. So I actually grew up in the landscaping industry, following the footsteps of Dad, of my old man. And I've always worked with him since I was at the young age of say around 10. So I've actually, but he wasn't slave labor. He actually did pay me. Not much, but it was a lot. It was a lot for me at the time. So I was a young lad, but I wanted to help. So I was, happy staying small and locally. He was a very old-fashioned man, pen and paper, dropping quotes off to all clients, very IT illiterate, and this no means of me talking down about him. This is what's great about him, because this is where he has, built his skills up basically, and it's a big thing when it comes to the communication, because without technology, he had to just, phone people. That's all he could do, phone people, couldn't text, and go visit them. So that's how we've started. So we move forward several years. I tried to get out of the industry because he was always quiet around winter, because he only stayed local and he only advertised in the newspaper. So I fell into self-employment. I was on an apprenticeship, which didn't work out. So I had no choice but to sink or swim. Now I'm a fighter, so I chose to swim. And I started off cutting grass out the back of my Peugeot 206.
Peugeot 206 cutting grass. What colour was the car?
Oh, it was grey.
So you're rocking up in a grey Peugeot 206 with your lawnmower. Is that how you started out?
That's how I started out. I used to take all the rubbish with me as well. So I used to fill up bulk bags of rubbish, and I used to put 2 bulk bags at a time of grass into the car. So some days the grass stayed there and the car stunk, even just for a few days when the hot weather was about. So that wasn't very pleasant.
Oh, whatever it takes though to get that business off the ground. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah, whatever it takes. So after 3 months, which went quick, I purchased a small van. A year later, I started taking on more landscaping works, and then a year later, the van was robbed with all my tools. Only after that first year, so I had to go back to square one.
You're kidding.
Yeah. So luckily, it got nicked. Had it all insured, so not a worry. So, and I ended up getting a better van out of it. So, there was a blessing in disguise there, really. But since then, I've grew my business as a one-man band to a team of 6 strong and a vehicle fleet of 4. And that's with thanks to networking organisations like BNI, for example. It's very word of mouth, and everyone is accountable for what they do there. So I felt, I've really got to push this, and it's helped my business grow so much that I'm busy and I'm firefighting, but I'm getting there. Because what you got to learn is that the business is never going to settle. You'll always come across problems, and that's what a business owner is. They're a problem solver.
Really good. BNI, by the way, we actually did an interview with the director of BNI West Midlands. So any listeners can go and check in with that to expand on what Connor's talking about here. Because that is very word of mouth, and if word of mouth can work 2 ways, can't it? If you do a good job, it's a good word of mouth, and if you do a bad job, then guess what? You're going to get found out.
Exactly.
I like, by the way, that you're saying here, especially with the van getting stolen, a lot of people could see that as a bit of a sign of this isn't working out for me. So in that, just that little story there, you've shown, if it's okay to point out, resilience, massive amounts of resilience as in your character. Would you say that's one of the key things in entrepreneurs? Yeah,
resilience is very important. So when that happened, it will run through everyone's mind. Do I give up? Do I just call it quits? But you gotta dig deep. Gotta dig deep to not pull the plug on your vision and your dreams.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Because it will never be easy. If you may have a setback financially, having to get this other van or get your tools back, but that's the thing, you have to micromanage. You have to micromanage that. And you have to be tight. You have to live below your means to get to where you want to be. So, and then that's how I've managed to pull that back anyway. Because I've lived below my means. I'm not saying I lived off beans and toast. I've got a very supportive partner, and she she's always pushing me. So I'm very lucky in that aspect. To have someone by my side like that, and that again, I think makes the person. It's a big factor of whether you can withstand that blow of having everything lost and having to start again.
Well, the story that you told before, I mean, that's a story of building character. The resilience is just a part of that character, isn't it? What got you where you are today? Is there other options available? There are. But does it work for you? Yeah. And that's what this podcast is about. Is about finding out the real life examples of what people are doing out there to make this happen. So you mentioned vision, by the way, just quickly.
Yeah.
What's that vision?
My vision is, I would love to franchise my landscaping business and set up the 4 pillars of landscaping, which to me are supplying materials, supplying aggregates and fence panels. You've got the install, which is what we're running already, which is what we grew up around. Maintaining that hardscape. So timber, the garden's never going to be maintenance free, even if you have artificial grass. If someone says it's maintenance free,
I love your brutal honesty. It's something in your character there is brutal honesty. And personally, with my profile, I want people that are honest with me, not, I won't say the next word. Yeah.
It's definitely not maintenance free. So, weeds will always drop from the air with from trees. The birds will carry it in, you'll still get weeds in that artificial grass. So,
yeah, even worse then because it's broke.
Yeah. so like I say, patios need maintaining, decking needs maintaining, fencing needs maintaining. It all needs maintaining.
And your vision here is to create, like, I mean, I'm stealing Akash's words, by the way, from two episodes ago. He was talking in a different context about financial services, and he wants to create the ecosystem for everything financial services. So what you're talking here is to create an ecosystem of everything to do with landscaping, from supply, install, maintain, and furnish.
That's it, yeah.
So you might need to copyright that from Akash, by the way. So if you are listening, Akash, sorry, I've just stolen your vision here and gave it. So I want to just sum all this up then, Connor, because at the end of the day, right, I'm a business owner and a business coach. You're a business owner. Look, it's not just about making business on love, because love doesn't bring in and pay the bills, does it? Because if I say to my mortgage company and they go, yeah, Lewis, you've missed your mortgage for the last 2 months. And I go, yeah, but I'm making loads of people happy. Yeah, that doesn't really. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, you're not about to be happy because I'm going to kick you out your house. So at some point, there's got to be some tangible way of building a business, isn't there? We've got to talk about the money side. We've got to talk about the cash flow side. But what I'm trying to tie in here with you, which I think would be good for the listeners, is how do you get this culture stuff we've just spoke about, working to people's strengths? How do we get that over to winning jobs?
Okay.
You got any stories on that, by the way? Because you mentioned storytelling. Have you got a story about an example of how you win a job?
Yeah. So there was this one time last year. So we checked out this job in Hatton. Got to the job to survey a patio. So it was a very, very large patio to install. The client was honest. So he said he's getting other quotes in, which is perfectly fair. You know, I would too. But what was interesting was that the client decided to go with us, and he didn't waste any time in deciding that.
Wow. Okay. So just I'm 100% confident that you were the people.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. That's a fantastic value.
Because he actually fed back to us as well on why that was, which we don't actually get that often. But since then, we've received that same feedback every time, and it was evident that, you know, the old man, the way he comes across, and the way it's, you know, rubbed off on me, and how I now come across to people, because I've had his old clients say, "Well, your mannerisms are just like Martin's." So bloody hell, that's an insult. Don't say that. But yeah, he chose us because the visions we had when we were looking at the job, we voiced to him as questions rather than statements. So in relation to how he could use this patio. So, like, for example, he had a little space around the back. We said that would be a fantastic alfresco area. You know, he's got his gym there. And he's got a coffee machine in that room. I said you could have a lovely cast iron table in that centre. And the sun, it's just a sunblock, so the sun comes down all day. It shines on that one area. And it'd be lovely to just sit there and read a book in it. Another thing was that we had a laugh and a joke when on site surveying. So you know, getting to know the client's very important. And having a laugh is also very important, not just when you're with the client, but when you're in your working career, when you're running the business, because if you don't have a laugh, you know, you're just going to be miserable, aren't you? And then the next thing where he mentioned were that we ensured each of his key areas were taken into consideration. So this is a pretty vague statement, but it's breaking down on what he said. You know, we've given him ideas on how we could improve his ideas. in specific areas that were sentimental to him. And then this goes on to, listening to his needs and providing the solutions to meet his needs. We were polite, and like I said, we had a laugh, not abrupt. And the feedback he gave us was that the one example was that the one guy come in and he said, "You want this, and that over there," and you give him a price on site. To me, giving prices on site is very unprofessional. It's a risky move to take.
Well, it feels like you just bring it out your head.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Exactly.
I'd be the same, to be honest. You're like, hold on a minute, mate. Where did you get that figure from?
Yeah. So without sitting down and working, and that's why some, tradespeople can then go back to the client and say, "Oh, actually, I need this much more money," and that's not the agreed. That's not how you do business, Absolutely. In my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, at his age as well, it sounds like he's had some experience with people in the past. So some of the key questions in there of what experiences you had with people in the past. Oh, bloody hell, we had this person, he came in and he quoted me X amount. And it turns out it was double that when he actually finished because of all the stuff that he missed off.
Yeah.
I've personal experience, by the way.
And then it was the communication piece. So, we when we see our clients, we send them links to all our supplier sites. This may seem, well, the client's going to see what the prices of this is, but this is the honesty piece. This is, if you're honest with them, if you're honest with your clients, and they like you, they'll choose you.
Really like that. That's awesome. I'm making some notes there then, just to run over it then. So he chose you because you asked him great questions. And by asking those questions, you understood him and could serve him better with some new ideas that, from your experience, that you could bring to the table too. Yeah. I like the thing that you said about we have a laugh and a joke on site surveying, and we're also polite and not abrupt. Now, having a laugh and a joke, yeah, it's good to have fun people around you as well, but it also shows great rapport, because if something goes wrong, if you've got somebody who's not having a laugh and a joke with you, it's quite difficult. Talking from experience of contractors I've had, where I've got to have a difficult conversation to say, mate, I'm not happy with that.
Yeah.
And personally, as somebody investing a lot of money into something, I'd want to know that I have that open, honest communication. And then you've topped that off at the end by saying you send the link to suppliers' sites to go, look, absolute transparency and clarity. This is what you're getting. Yeah. This is how we priced it. Open and honest again. And isn't it interesting that throughout this podcast, we've talked about culture, values, legacy, character. And now you're wrapping this up now with how do you get your customers, your top paying customers, A-grade clients, is through clarity and open and honesty as well, which is a value. Really
that is correct. You phrased that.
Yeah, good. Okie doke. Look, I think we've added massive value to the listeners here. Wouldn't you agree, listeners? I'm going to put this out onto social media. We'll put it onto LinkedIn, especially is where we host this. Because it's a business owners, and that's where a lot of our people hang out. So any comments, by the way, guys, make sure that you either send them to me or to Connor. You can connect with Connor. I'll share his LinkedIn contacts on LinkedIn as well. Connor, how else can people get in touch with you to take some first steps into, getting you to create these dream gardens that you're talking about?
So the one of the best ways is to visit the contact us page on our website. They'll have an extensive form.
What's your website?
It's www.healyfencing.co.uk, and that's Healy as Healy.
Fencing.co.uk. Great stuff. You got a Facebook page, you got LinkedIn. Well, you're everywhere, aren't you? Like I said, this is where I first got introduced to the world of Connor, by the way, was a LinkedIn connection. And you were actually asking a question out there. And I think I put something back with, I know a supplier that could get you this. I think it was something like that. But that's what you've suggested today as well. It's through that relationship networking, isn't it, that your business is built on?
Yeah. And we actually finished one of our first ever LinkedIn client projects today. So posting consistently works.
Absolutely. So there's another podcast there about LinkedIn marketing, isn't there, we could do?
That's it.
Connor, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Loads of lessons, loads of things learned. Did that trigger something there?
Yeah, that did.
We're on Zoom and you're pissing yourself here, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of lessons to lock in, guys, the listeners. Share your biggest lesson on social media. You can listen to this on Spotify and iTunes and share it with other people. If you want to reach out to Connor, you can visit his website. Connor, if they visit your website, what's the first thing that they do? They fill in a form, you say, and then you visit them, or would it be you?
Yeah. So we have an extensive contact form, which not many other landscapers provide. It just goes through your requirements, your budgets. It's very clear, very easy to fill out. I'll receive that email, and then I'll be giving you a call within 48 hours.
48 hours? Great service from the start. Connor, been an absolute pleasure, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.